We wanted to talk to you this morning, Senator, about a letter that you had sent to President Obama, and you sent a note to supporters over the weekend as well, talking about more and more American people have come to believe that we are becoming a deadbeat nation, inevitably headed toward a European-style debt crisis. What's the impetus for that, and have you heard anything back from the White House yet since they received the letter?
Well, we're not going to hear anything back from the White House. And number two is the impetus of it is pretty simple. That is that there's no plan in place to deal with this debt. I mean, it's like watching a horror movie. You know those movies where you're the people in the audience are screaming, "Don't open that door! Don't go in there," because you know the killer's there. Well, it's the same thing with this debt. We know how this ends. We know what happens when a country's debt becomes too big a percentage of its economy, and that's where we are. And no one seems to be taking that very seriously in Washington. I mean, I shouldn't say no one, but certainly not the president, not his party. I mean, there's absolutely no concern whatsoever for what's happening with this debt issue in terms of the public policy they're offering. And at some point, it was one of the things I campaigned on, and I felt like I had to make a really strong statement on that going into this new year.
So then how do you bring your fellow Republicans under your banner on that point, given that you're not going to convince the president or the Democratic Party, but you may be able to win over your Republicans?
Well, I think the Republicans are on board on that, and I think that's the good news. I mean, the bad news is we don't have a majority in the Senate, and to get overly partisan, but we don't have a majority in the Senate, and so therefore the people that control the Senate are not really that interested in dealing with the debt this year. They're more interested in getting reelected, and then they're more interested in doing, gimmick votes, which is what the Senate basically did all of last year. We're out of time. I mean, this is a very serious situation. And just as you're starting to see some glimmers of hope that Americans are turning the economy around, you've got this thing looming over our head. I mean, you want to stifle that, you want to kill that, have there be some real European-style debt crisis here at some point this year. You're going to crush any sort of recovery opportunity that we might have.
A couple of questions that came in on Facebook on the story. Craig wrote, what, if any, federal departments would you like to see terminated in order to get the debt crisis under control?
Well, that's always the question, people. Here's the good news about it. It's not about federal programs. I mean, the vast majority of our debt problem right now, the majority of our debt problem is being driven by what some call entitlement programs. And, for example, Medicare. I mean, and Medicare has to be reformed. I'm a supporter of Medicare. I think it's been documented. My mom has been sick this year. My father passed away a year ago. Medicare is a huge and important part for them. I don't want there to be any changes for Medicare for people that are currently on the system. So, for all the political demagogues out there who like to take this system, that like to take this issue and beat people up with it, let me just say right now what I've always said. If we do it and we do it right, there doesn't have to be any changes in Medicare for people that are currently on Medicare. I'm speaking to the people of my generation. I'm 40 years old. There isn't going to be a Medicare if we don't begin to reform it for people like me. There's not going to be a Medicare. So I and my generation need to accept that our Medicare has to look different, because otherwise our country and Medicare itself goes bankrupt. And that's where the majority of the debt problem comes from, is Medicare, Medicaid, and those government entitlement programs.
So the president won't have your support to raise the debt ceiling. Will he have the support of many Republicans in order to do it short term as we work on long-term solutions?
I don't think so at this point. Look, the debt ceiling has historically been lifted because it's a number, and as your economy gets bigger, what really matters is what percentage of your economy is your debt. And if it's too big a percentage, you have a problem. Well, no, it's actually bigger than our economy. We're getting close to $16 trillion of debt in a $15 trillion economy. That's frightening, that our debt is larger than our economy, and that's where we're headed with this next debt limit increase, with no serious plan. There's only been one plan offered last year to deal with Medicare, and that was Paul Ryan's plan. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but there was no counter plan by the president. Where is his plan to deal with Medicare, which is driving our debt? It's going to bankrupt Medicare, and then it's going to bankrupt our country. And I think we should be outraged that nothing's being done about it.